All right, this is a part of the presentation that is going to delve into politics. And I need to explain this Metrolink alternative to you before we talk about our congressmen and our state's legislators and our county supervisors, our city council and our school board members, and what are they doing to help us. Because it is an important part of the meeting tonight to thank those elected officials who have really come through for us. There are a number who are doing some really hard digging and investigative work for us, and then they give us information, we run with it. Okay, it's really been a good partnership with many of these elected officials. But before we talk about them, we've got to talk about something that's new. Well, it's new and it's old. You know what E1 and E2 and E3 and SR14 are. They're all called route alternatives. And to do an environmental study like an EIR, you're supposed to have a range of alternatives. You can't just study one. Most EIRs don't study just two. They'll normally study 3 or 4 so that down the road when they choose where they want to build their project, they can say, we've studied everything and this is the best way to go. So now we have E1 and E2, and as you know, we are giving them high heat on these alternatives. We have made them, we are white hot with the high-speed rail board. They don't want to touch us. They're trying to find ways around this. Some of our elected officials have picked up the baton, and they're saying, well, let's try to come up with another alternative then. The problem I've always had with this high-speed rail people saying to us, well, if you don't want it through the Big Tahunga Wash, or if you don't want it down San Fernando Road, where would you put it? I was like, well, why don't you just give me a gun and I'll just shoot myself? I'm not going to tell you where to do it. You've got the billions of dollars. You've got the computer models. You've got the maps. You figure it out. You've had all this time. So they keep coming back to us with E1 and E2. They have failed to identify any new alternatives. So a couple of years ago, there were a number of races, political campaigns going on, and we were holding campaign forums. And we had a number of officials there, and one of the candidates was a guy named Ara Najarian, and he's a councilman in the city of Glendale. He's also involved with Metro, the big transit organization downtown. He said, well, if they would follow what I think, and Mike Antonovich said this also a few years ago, they ought to stop the high-speed train in Palmdale, and instead of building tunnels through the forest, instead of building a high-speed train down San Fernando Road, they ought to just take the money and dump it into Metrolink and make improvements on Metrolink. Electrify it, because right now Metrolink is diesel, so it's polluting. And where you have what are called grade crossings, you know, where the arms come down and the bells go off, you could do grade crossings where the roads go over the tracks or the roads go under the tracks. So when Ara Najarian said that, we thought that was a pretty good idea. So we wrote a letter to the High Speed Rail Authority, the SAFE Coalition did, and we said, well, we finally came up with an alternative for you, here you go. Please study it. They wrote us back and they said, sorry, we can't study it. And they went on to tell us why. Prop 1A is the ballot measure that happened in 2008. A ballot measure is a big deal in California. Maybe our elected officials can comment. It's probably stronger than a law. It's bigger than a law. It's like a part of the California Constitution when you do a ballot measure. And the only way you can change big things in a ballot measure is to go back to the voters. So this is what the ballot measure said about the high-speed train. These are just a few of the most important features that the high-speed train needed to have. It needed to have sustained speeds of no less than 200 miles per hour. So if they built it and only went 150, it would be illegal. They couldn't do it. So there's a design standard that they must meet. It must get from Northern California to Union Station in 2 hours and 40 minutes. If they come up with a route or an alternative that takes 3.5 hours, they can't do it. It's one of the reasons why they love the idea of tunneling through the forest, because it's shorter and it's faster than what used to be the SR14 route. It has to be capable of running every 5 minutes between successive trains. So imagine, train goes by and all the dust settles, and whether it's on a single track or a double track, another train needs to be able to go by in one of the two directions within 5 minutes. Okay, it's got to move and clear out that fast, which means you can't build near turns because turns slow the trains down, etc. They also have what they call a one-seat experience. And throughout different parts of California, the deal is, and it's in the ballot measure, that if you get on the train in a certain location, you should be able to get to the next station without changing trains. Well, if you take a high-speed train from Bakersfield to Palmdale, but then have to get off that train and get on a Metrolink train to get down to Union Station, that's not a one-seat experience anymore. That wouldn't be allowed under the ballot measure. Okay? These are some of the things in the law that you cannot vary from. And this is where a number of our legislators have been really helpful to us, getting information both from the authority and from the legal counsel that advises the legislators on what can and cannot happen. So as I mentioned, when we heard that this Metrolink alternative was proposed, we sent this letter, and they wrote back and said, we can't do it because what it does, it adds an hour of time to the trip from Palmdale to Burbank. Think about it. We have a map. This is the map of E1 and E2, and overlaid, this is the Metrolink line, the green line that goes around, okay? And then there's E2, and there's what's left of E1 and SR 14. The route from Palmdale to Burbank is in the 50-mile range if you ride Metrolink. It's in the 35 to 40 range if you go on either E1 or E2 on the high-speed train line. Okay, so it's longer, number one. Then you have to look at speeds. Okay, if you're taking this Metrolink, you see there's a lot of curves and turns, so even if it's a Metrolink train, it's not going to be running at full Metrolink speed, which could be as much as 70, 80 miles an hour. The average speeds in some of these more congested and high-turning areas is down in the mid-40 range for miles per hour. So if you think about this map, when we submitted the idea of doing the Metrolink alternative, we were told, you can't do it. So what's happening now, though, last year in February, Mayor Garcetti, okay, so I'm taking the move into politics, Mayor Garcetti sent a letter to the High Speed Rail Authority asking them to study improvements to the Metrolink line from Palmdale to Burbank. He also asked that they study a tunnel route from Palmdale to Burbank. That was a year ago. We found out shortly after that the high-speed rail people said you can't do it. So anyway, that proposal, the mayor has still got that on his plate. Nothing's happened that we know about, and I'm going to get into more detail on that a little later. We don't know if anything has happened from the mayor's office on that. In the meantime, in November, our council member, Monica Rodriguez, endorsed the Metrolink alternative. So now we have our mayor and our council member endorsing an alternative that we thought was a good idea, but they told us no. So we're trying to reach both the mayor's office and our council member's office to explain to them that we've been through this once before. And Ara Najarian had been through this once before, and they were told no. So what we don't want to do is spin our wheels and lose time and money and have this hanging over all of our heads here with certain elected officials thinking that the Metrolink alternative could be the solution. Now, the only thing that they have to go by is the word of Dan Richard. Dan Richard is the chairman of the High Speed Rail Authority. You just heard what Charlene Hook and the people in the Central Valley said about him. Kelly and I were downtown last week for a meeting with the supervisor, Barger, and we got in the car and we called up to Alan, Scott, and because Kelly was going up there like in the next day, and we said, so what's new in the Central Valley and with Dan Richard? And they said, Dan Richard is a pathological liar. And they repeated that over and over when Kelly was up there last week. Yet when we met with Supervisor Barger last week, All they had to go by was a meeting with Dan Richard where Dan said, yes, we'll study it. So while we would normally embrace it, and we did about a year and a half ago, we are being cautious. We're not going to get overly enthused about this. They think, some of the elected officials we talked to think that instead of going back to the ballot and back to the voters, they might be able to pass some legislation, which would be like a shortcut to approve this deal. We're being told by our sources, our experts, that that just is not going to happen. We've been told that if an alternative came up that was a minute or two longer than what is in the ballot measure, a judge, imagine lawyers from both sides coming in and one lawyer saying, we want to add another minute, and the other lawyer says, no, you can't. The judge would say, hey, it's only a minute. It's pretty much what people voted for. You can do it. The legal opinion came back, but if you got up to 4, 5, or 6 minutes, forget it. You got to go back to the voters. So when we did the math and the numbers, and we met with Metrolink engineers and others, and they told us it's an hour, that's why it's really hard for us to give much credibility to this alternative that the mayor and Councilwoman Rodriguez are now touting. And if they would meet with us and talk with us, maybe they know something we don't know. They're not telling us. That's called non-transparency, and that's a real problem, because I think we know a hell of a lot about this project. We have a lot of experience. We have talked with the people in the Central Valley, and it will come down to really good staff work. The mayor's transportation policy people and Monica Rodriguez's transportation policy people are really going to have to pick their games up to get to the bottom of this, because we believe that this Metrolink alternative is a real long shot. Okay? So I wanted to preface that, and now I'll show you where our elected officials are on this whole issue. The United Front, there we go. All right, we came up with this concept a couple of years ago of building like a wall, of every community organization, every community leader, every business, every elected official, so that every time high-speed rail came down here, they had no friends. They had no open doors, they had no wiggle room. And the United Front took up two different components. The first was on the community side, and this is where you have the homeowner organizations, the community organizations, the neighborhood councils, and we've put together a pretty solid wall here. We have a couple of what we call works in progress. We have the Sylmar Neighborhood Council, Sun Valley Neighborhood Council, and Pacoima Neighborhood Council that have looked at this topic, but they haven't taken all the official steps that they need to take to formally oppose either of these routes. So we're committed to continuing to work with them, but we do have the Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council, Sunland Sahunga Neighborhood Council, and many other organizations aligned with us. So awareness has gone up. All of you being here today is helping many more people. Tonight, obviously, are learning about this, and you're going to talk about this with your friends. So the word's going to keep going around on the community side. On the political side, we've approached it by breaking it down into all the different levels of government, okay? And we've even held candidate forums, and we will hold additional candidate forums. I don't know if there were a couple of candidates here earlier for the 39th Assembly District. Once we're done with tonight and we get a rest, we're going to put together a candidate forum like we've done in the past for the 39th Assembly District, and there's one of our either candidates or supporters. But we will. We've just been pretty tied up with this. So let me walk you through who's saying what in the political realm. Okay, first we have Congressman Adam Schiff. This congressman has been our best friend since this whole fight started. And Teresa Lamb is here, and she's going to speak in a minute. But I did want to just tell you that he came out, he's a quick study. I think you're seeing it when you see him on the nightly news. Whether you agree with him or you disagree with him, the guy is really fast and really smart. And his staff work is unbelievable. So early on, he said he urges the High-Speed Rail Authority to reject consideration of tunneling through the Angeles National Forest. He said, we don't believe the East Corridor is a viable alternative to connecting Palmdale and Burbank. He said, abandon any study to build the high-speed rail through the Angeles National Forest. Teresa, would you like to read your statement? Okay. And while Teresa's coming up here, I'll just tell you, every day during the fire, Teresa or Congressman Schiff called us to see how we were doing and if there were any resources we needed during the fire. So we appreciate the work that was done then. When I'm watching congressional hearings, seeing Adam Schiff, and then 20 minutes later, the phone's ringing and it's him, seeing if we're okay. It was amazing. Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you, and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Congressman Schiff, and thank you for the responsive staff, Dave. In December of 2014, Representatives Schiff and Congresswoman Judy Chu sent a letter to the California High-Speed Rail Authority asking the California High-Speed Rail Authority to reject consideration of tunneling through the Angeles National Forest, basically, which is what is up here on the screen. We do not believe that the East Corridor is a viable alternative to connecting the high-speed rail between Palmdale and Burbank. Any benefits gained by going through the forest does not outweigh the far greater cost to the project and the damage that might be done to our environment. We therefore ask the authority to abandon any study to build the high-speed rail through the Angeles National Forest. On behalf of Congressman Schiff, thank you.
This is Congressman Tony Cardenas. He had a staff person come in who became ill yesterday, and he didn't make it. But he said, consider building the least disruptive route that will keep the high-speed rail line below ground. We must balance the needs of local communities and keep the character of neighborhoods intact. And his staff has been really easy and helpful to work with. Our legislators, both Senator Hertzberg and Senator Portantino, they're on the same slide because they jointly authored a letter. And a lot of work went into getting both of the elected officials to understand the nuances, the complexities of this. But ever since they made the decision, they've been 100% behind us, and they've been very, very helpful. And they said, we are all in agreement that the refined E2 alternative should be removed from consideration. They said the impact of this above and below ground route on our respective communities is not acceptable to any of this. And these are letters that they're writing to the High-Speed Rail Board, so all the board members, all the management, and all staff. So this is how we're building that united front. The LA County Board of Supervisors was the first big victory that we achieved, I think it was back in 2016. We got what's known as a 5-signature letter, which meant every supervisor signed it, and they were very responsive to us. We had an open door with Supervisor Keel, Supervisor Antonovich. Then there were the elections. We knew Supervisor Barger when she was Chief of Staff for Antonovich. Now she's taken over, so we've had good continuity. Plus, a lot of the staff from Mike Antonovich's era have carried over to this administration with Catherine Barger. They said they're opposed to the refined E2 alignment and any other variation of this alignment that would cross the Binktahunga Wash at or above grade. They said it poses tremendous impacts to local communities, environmental resources, equestrian activities, and the general quality of life. They brought up the environmental justice concerns. They listened to us, and they understood that the High-Speed Rail Authority did not finish the job when they just took out a part of SR 14. They left Lakeview Terrace exposed, they left Pacoima exposed, and they left Sun Valley exposed. So the Board of Supervisors, and that was so helpful. It's like when the Super Bowl signs Coca-Cola, they then can go to Budweiser and say, hey, we got Coca-Cola. Or they can go to a car dealer to Honda and they can say, hey, we got Coca-Cola. Well, we had the Board of Supervisors, and I think that helped some of the other elected officials take notice. I really mentioned this already, and this is Supervisor Barger, who Kelly and I met with on Valentine's Day. We had to bring her a box of candy. But she kind of got pulled into this Metrolink alternative. And I think we know more about the alternative, or a lot about the alternative that can be very helpful to them now as they look at it. And we authored a letter over the weekend to them that explained the pitfalls of the Metrolink alternative, like we explained to them just to you a few minutes ago, that adding an hour makes it just improbable. It's most likely illegal to do. So we put that to them, and now that'll help them as they go into their meetings. And the good thing is we get calls back. We may have to be dogs about it, but ultimately they are working with us and they do communicate with us. This just happened today. The new school board member, Kelly Gonez, wrote what might be the best letter we've ever gotten. Extremely passionate, extremely from the heart, very detailed. You could tell they listened to everything we said to them. And so what I don't know is whether she's going to pursue a resolution with the full school board. We were working on that with her predecessor, Monica Ratliff. But now we have a good, solid school board member who represents this area as well. So I think you're seeing we're building a wall, right? The governor's office, not going to say much here. You see that picture up there? That is a picture of Governor Brown walking in his ranch. And for his retirement, we're going to help build a tunnel in his backyard on his ranch so he can go and play with his train set. And below are the two leading candidates right now, and I don't mean to give short shrift to any of the other candidates, other than we had space limitations. We wanted to make the point. We're going to send the letters that you maybe have signed already to every one of the candidates. And it's been written already in the papers that they're ducking questions about the high-speed rail project, the high-speed train project. So we're going to demand that they tell us what their positions are. Otherwise, we'll be advocating around here not to support their campaigns. Okay, this is, we're almost at our last part here. This is our Achilles heel. Our Achilles heel right now are the politics and the players in the city of Los Angeles. I don't know if it's that they're so busy. I don't know if it's that all the money from the High-Speed Rail Authority that's coming in to fund other rail projects. I don't know if it's the cap and trade dollars that come in. I don't know if it's the union monies that are coming for campaign contributions. But we cannot get fast answers and quick follow-up and strong follow-up when we meet and talk with our City of LA elected officials. And that is if we ever get the chance to meet with them. Okay, so the point again being, it's 3 years now, and the City of Los Angeles doesn't have a position on this project. But it keeps taking funding from the authority, from cap and trade, and from union funds. Our observation is that the mayor and the city council are not coordinating. They're not talking to each other. They're not working together, and they're not talking enough with us. We met with Mayor Garcetti last February 16th. They make it feel like it was yesterday. It was a year ago. The mayor wrote a letter a year ago. A year has gone by. We can't even get a meeting with our city council member, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I heard she was at the Sylmar Neighborhood Council tonight. We have not ever had a meeting with Monica Rodriguez, and I'm going to cover Monica in a minute. Okay, there was one development that we thought had some promise. There was a motion created that was going to go through the city council that would get the city on the record. The motion was created in September, October of 2016. The motion is stuck in the Transportation Committee. We've been unable to move it. We are working closely right now with Councilman Herb Wesson, who's the president of City Council, to try to unstick it. Met with him yesterday, testified in front of the LA City Council yesterday, and we are making some progress there, but the LA City politics, as you'll see in a minute, they're really very, very difficult to deal with. This gives you an example of cities up and down the state of California where the cities have filed lawsuits on behalf of their residents and their businesses and their communities, or they've done motions or resolutions or letters expressing what they want done to the High-Speed Rail Board of Directors. So you see quite a few. You don't see the City of Los Angeles' name there yet. There was a letter from Mayor Garcetti, but I'm going to cover that letter in a minute. There's nothing from the unified LA City Council yet, and it's been 3 years. So here's our situation with Mayor Garcetti. I mentioned we met with him and he wrote a letter about a year ago. I reread his letter today. He asked the High-Speed Rail Authority to do a study of the Metrolink alternative a year ago. Where's the study? A year ago, he asked the High-Speed Rail Authority to do a study of a fully tunneled route. I mean, we gave credit to the mayor for listening to us because we said, go ahead and study a fully alternative route and let's see if it makes sense. See if it can be done environmentally, see if it can be done cost effectively. He said, okay, he wrote in his letter. It's a year later. Where's the study? He also said to the High-Speed Rail Authority, we want you to finish your environmental studies by the summer of 2017. Well, in, I think, October of this year, the High-Speed Rail Authority announced another 2-year delay. It will be 2020 at the soonest that the environmental documents come out for this project section from Palmdale to Burbank. We have a representative here from Mayor Garcetti's office who is responsive. He's the district representative in the community. Unfortunately, he's not on the policy side. He doesn't work on the transportation issue. So he has to defer to his colleagues there. And quite frankly, we have not been getting return phone calls. We've not been able to get a meeting. We get a little bit of response to emails, but we can't break this logjam communication-wise with the mayor's office. So my message to you is another letter we're going to have to do soon. If we don't get some acknowledgement from the mayor's offices, we're going to have to talk to the mayor about this. Okay, I mentioned Councilman Wesson just a minute ago. He was here for a candidate event about a year or so ago, and he came right up to the microphone in this church, and he said, I've got your back. I'm standing with you on this issue. You can count on my support. Councilmember Martinez has been largely uninvolved in the whole high-speed train debate. There are a lot of other issues in that district. That's not an excuse or a pass, but because of that, we've tried to communicate with her office, but also with the local neighborhood council, and that neighborhood council isn't doing enough for its residents there. It's been 3 years, and they have not yet studied the issue. So I actually had an exchange today with the president of that neighborhood council, encouraging them to pick up the pace and get with the program, because there are decisions that we are trying to influence, but when they don't hear from the impacted communities, the high-speed rail people say, well, we're not hearing from Sun Valley, let's put it over there. We're not saying that. You hear us all night tonight. We're fighting against all of these above-ground routes, the E1s and the E2s. We need those communities to join the fight as well. So we're asking Ms. Martinez to get this motion passed by the City Council. This is the hardest part of this presentation because it is not easy to stand up here, both as an individual and for our team, to confess to you all that we're having major challenges dealing with our council member. But I want to tell you what the facts are, and then I think you'll understand. During her campaign, not on one piece of direct mail, nor on her website was there ever a message of the high-speed train issue, despite us communicating to her and to friends and supporters of her. We put together a pledge that every candidate signed, pledging to do everything they could if elected, and this pledge is on our website. It was really a good document, and it was a campaign promise is what it amounted to. She was the last one to sign it. Not only was she the last one to sign it, I had to call her half a dozen times. I had to call her supporters at least that many times and say, I've got everybody else's pledge. I don't have Ms. Rodriguez's. Would you please talk to her? I got a call back from one of her supporters saying, she just signed it. I told her to sign it. That's what it took. So that's sort of how we got to know her. Then we found also toward the end of the campaign that she was not transparent about some of the campaign contributions that she had received. We had an interview process with her, and we brought up that certain contributions had come in from high-speed rail contractors, high-speed rail unions, and a high-speed rail board member. And at first, she denied it. She then said, well, those are companies that do all kinds of work for the city. It's not just for the high-speed train project. She had the questions about a month in advance of the interview. Plenty of time to prepare and answer it appropriately from our perspective. And again, Ms. Rodriguez has been in office since July 1st. We're approaching 8 months. No motion has moved. She wrote a letter in November that brought up the Metrolink alternative that had been proposed by S.A.F.E and others a year ago, and that's all we've gotten. I'm hearing through the grapevine that she's working on a motion to go through the city council. She won't meet with us, she won't talk with us, she's not sharing that information, it's non-transparent. She's actually created an advisory council. That's what her and her staff call it. There is no one in the S.A.F.E Coalition Leadership Group that has been asked to serve on that advisory council. Another very subtle point, if you read everything that Ms. Rodriguez has written, she's talking about new alternatives. She never says stop E1 and stop E2. So our response to Supervisor Barger, to the mayor, and to Councilmember Rodriguez is these are two different issues. Coming up with new alternatives is one thing. Your position on the existing routes is another. Don't put the cart ahead of the horse. Let's get rid of E1 and E2 first. So that's the request. We communicated very clearly over the past few weeks, and we'll let you know if anything changes. My colleague, Lynn Tobey, I'm going to ask Lynn to come up. You saw in one of the bullet points that we have written hundreds of letters, phone calls, and emails trying to get a meeting with Councilmember Rodriguez. And Lynn is one of those people, and I'm just going to let her relate her experience.
Thank you, Dave. As Dave said, my name is Lynn Tobey, and I'm a Shadow Hills resident. And a year ago, I joined the board of SHPOA and became one of the members of the S.A.F.E Coalition. I've been attending meetings in my fetching yellow shirt for 3 years, but only really became involved in the last year. I've learned more than I ever thought I would want to know about high-speed trains, and even more about the politics of how it's glacially moving through the process, as you've seen tonight. One thing I've learned is that you must engage with your politicians to get involved, stay involved, and keep their attention on the issues. I'll grant that they are busy and sought-after people, but they took an oath and they are paid to represent each and every one of us, regardless of how they feel about us. The people in this room, all of you, represent the grassroots foundation of S.A.F.E. Without your support, we couldn't have come this far or continue our fight against this nasty, invasive, destructive, life-altering project. We need your help tonight. After our councilperson was elected in July 2007, I waited 100 days for her to settle in and then started my campaign to ask her to meet with S.A.F.E. Many other people with S.A.F.E had tried to meet with her and had sent lots of letters and made lots of calls without getting a meeting. I decided to see what I could do. So at the beginning of November, I sent her an email CCing her staff. The next day, I sent another. The next day, another. On and on, day after day, week after week, month after month. I got 2 responses. Number 1, thanks but no thanks. And number 2, no really, thanks but no thanks. So I kept writing and writing. I visited her office 3 times and left written requests. My emails were not rude or offensive. I wrote about S.A.F.E and the valuable information we wanted to share and how important it would be and beneficial to our communities for her to meet with us. If you want to know how many emails I sent, 55. And still, no meeting. My emails were funny, informative, and polite. I even wrote poems and songs and kept asking the question, Will you meet with S.A.F.E? And if not, why not? I even wrote her an original hip-hop song after I saw Hamilton at the Pantages. The silence from her and her office staff has been loud and clear. I even asked her representative at a recent Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council meeting why Monica wouldn't meet with S.A.F.E, and she said Monica had already met with S.A.F.E. Really? Surprised me. Am I in an alternate universe? I think I would remember meeting with Monica Rodriguez. In case my memory has started to fail, I ask the leadership of S.A.F.E here and now to answer this question. Have you had a meeting with Monica Rodriguez? No. Of course not. We've seen photo ops of her meeting with different groups for cultural, recreational purposes, and neighborhood improvement. Why not S.A.F.E? There are lots of issues in her district, and she seems to have time to meet with other groups, but not S.A.F.E. And we don't just want a one-time meet and greet and photo. We want an ongoing exchange of ideas and opinions. Monica said she was a great collaborator during the campaign. Well, we haven't seen it. S.A.F.E has spent thousands of hours working on behalf of everyone in this room, analyzing the confusing and contradictory information put forth by the High-Speed Rail Authority and other entities. We know these routes inside and out and want to share this information with a person who's going to be instrumental in the upcoming decision-making process. So why no meeting? Why no courtesy? Why no respect? Whether you voted for her or not, S.A.F.E represents all of us, and she is responsible to us. We don't know why, but are asking you to join us in asking Monica Rodriguez to meet and work with the S.A.F.E Coalition. There's a letter on every chair that we ask you to sign and return to us at the door. There's a space at the bottom for your comments if there's anything you would like to add. We've been very, very patient, but decisions are being made, and we, the people, need a voice at the table that represents our interests, not special interests. So, thank you. So please sign the letters so we can show our elected council person that S.A.F.E and our community leaders are not going away. Thank you.
We're doing really well on time, except for we started 20 minutes late. We have a song that we put together for you all, and there's an audience participation part to it, and we're going to ask you to all join in. When that song is over, we're going to ask you for about 2 more minutes because we want to let you know about this business plan that's coming up in the next couple of months, and we may need to, depending on where the meeting is, it might be here, it might be at Mission College. First thing is we got to get it. And that's what your letters are going to help do. And we've asked our elected officials who are here today, and I'm sorry I didn't introduce Steve Fukushima, who's here from Senator Hertzberg's office. I meant when I did each slide to introduce the folks who are here from the office. And was it? Yeah, Brian Gavidia just left from the mayor's office. And your name's, I'm sorry. Anthony Garcia, who's new. This is his first or second week on the job. So he's now a high-speed rail expert. We'll be coming to you. We'll be coming to you for help. But Steve has been helpful, and Barry, and we appreciate the senator. So, Seal Borman, everybody here knows Seal. If you could just cue the music. Everybody remember the song Who Will Stop the Rain by Creedence Clearwater Revival? Thank you. Okay, we're going to put the lyrics to this song up here, and you're welcome to join with us, and Seal will lead this beautiful orchestration. Daniel, just so you know, there's 3 slides that have the words, okay? So I don't want to interrupt Seal, but when we get to the end of the first slide, please go to the second and then go to the third. Thank you.
So are you ready to sing? Well, I'm not Creedence Clearwater, but this is a good parody of their song. So I'm going to start it out. I'm going to do it a cappella, and you guys can join in, you know, if you want to go. Long as I remember, trains been coming down through our homes and forests, unwelcome sight and sound, dust and trucks and fires, causing so much pain. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the train? Went to public meetings, told them how we felt, told them this is our hometown. They said, go to hell. Testified, cried, tried our best to explain. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the train? Can't tell our friends, can't tell who our friends are. Politicians play both sides, standing up for justice, dignity and pride. Lies, delays in politics, budgets are insane. Stay together, fight together, we'll stop the train. Now you know the words. You want to stand up and sing it? Come on now, stand up. Let's sing this again. We'll sing this together. Come on. You got the words? I know you all know Creedence Clearwater. Okay? So, all right, here we go. Long as I remember, trains been coming down through our homes and forests, unwelcome sight and sound, dust and trucks and fires, causing so much pain. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the train? Went to public meetings, told them how we felt, told them it's our hometown. They said, go to hell. Testified and cried, tried our best to explain. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the train? Can't tell who our friends are. Politicians play both sides, standing up for justice, dignity and pride. Lies, delays in politics, the budgets are insane. Stay together, fight together, we'll stop the train. Thank you.
All right, we just want to tell you a bit about some upcoming meetings for you to keep abreast of. Are there any question or comment cards that we can look at? If you write it down, can you bring it up? I'm sorry, where's what? Okay, they've been spread out. Well, if you didn't get a letter and you want one, please raise your hand because we have them on chairs all throughout the room.
Okay. My name's Bill Ike. I'm with the Shadow Hills Property Owners Association. Let me just give you a little bit of an update of what's coming forward. High-speed rail is required every 2 years to provide a business plan, and they have to give it to the legislature, and the legislature has to approve it. They asked for a 1-month continuance because it was due this March because they ran out of people to run high-speed rail, and they just got somebody new. So they thought they'd give them an opportunity to find out how bad this really was. And also, at the same time, because of all the pressure from folks like us, they're required to do they're going to do an audit of high-speed rail to find out what's the real cost, what are the real expenses. In any event, this business plan is an opportunity for us to focus what high-speed rail is thinking about. And so when this comes out, and we're writing letters now to explain to them, and some of these letters that you're looking at do this, to take into consideration things concerning Route E1 and E2, which have been explained before. When this business plan comes out, they have to hold public meetings about it. I'm not sure they're going to change their mind, but we're all going to be there, all right? And then we're going to do our best to make sure that this is going to go our way. One final thing. If none of this works, if we are, at the end of the day, they just tell us to go pound sand, okay, we have the response is hire the lawyers.
This is the last slide. There's a guy named Fritz Bronner, and Fritz is one of the longest standing residents here, neighborhood council leaders, and unfortunately Fritz is moving out of California, and he's actually out looking at properties today on the East Coast. But Fritz always used to say, death by a million paper cuts. Every letter you write, every testimony you give, when you do it in front of the press or you do it in front of an elected official, there's always somebody listening. There's always somebody paying attention. And you may think it's inconsequential or not that important, but it matters. And when you show up like tonight and you sign these letters, and when we ask you for help to go to meetings, it will make a difference. We just have to stay on it. As Dale Gibson always says, when you're in a fight, never turn your back. And that's going to be our motto moving forward. And I hope you're all seeing we are making tremendous progress. 3 years ago, we didn't have all the elected officials with us. We didn't have all the community organizations with us. We weren't seeing these desperate moves to come up with an alternative that may not even work. Like, if that alternative turns out to be a dead end, that's why we have to keep our elected officials on point that the routes, E1 and E2, they have to go no matter what. We're trying to stay on point and on focus. And that's the battle that we fight.